Okay, welcome to part 3. If you've made it through all the videos, God bless you, because I've looked at them and they're not that great, but as far as trying to edit everything. Plus, I seem to be rambling, so I'm going to quit rambling as much and just try and get straight to the point with everything. I felt like, oh, I'm giving enough information and this is great. I think it just makes everything run on and run on. So what we're going to do is we are going to basically finish the project in this video. So enjoy. Okay, so what I want to do first, we're going to end up attaching this liner, but by doing that, I'm not going to be able to get to this edge here, at least not as easily. So what I want to do is finish this edge. So this is going to be a little bit tricky because normally you're doing something on the outside and it's easy to use this tool. Now this is if you can see it, this is a edge beveler. It's got a little bit of a blade on it, and it's a number 3. I don't know the exact number as far as like part number, but the size-wise, it's a number 3, and you can tell, you're not going to be able to see it on here, but there's a little 3 etched in here. That's kind of a standard size, or a 2 maybe. But again, this I got from Tandy. Not that I shop there exclusively, but so what you're going to do is you're going to put it at an angle, because we're trying to kind of round these edges. Now, again, it's going to be tricky because it's not like this is round. I've got a start and stopping point that is going to be hard to hit. So, I'm going to kind of come in and then out, I guess, a little bit. Down, in, level it off, and then come up and out. It's going all right. Not as great as I would like, though. So just going to work these edges a little bit, try and go around them in a circular fashion. Yeah, that's all right. That works. We're makers, we make it work, right? There we go. So it doesn't have the sharp corners like it did, but I think that's fine. Minor detail. If you want that, keep it. Go ahead and don't do this. Throw that away later. So now what we could do is do the inside as well, and that can give it this edge, make it completely rounded, and we will on these sides. I'll show you that, but I'm not going to do that. Now I'm going to finish this just because this is going to be flat. I'd rather have the flat end here flush with our lining versus rounding it. That's just going to be nicer in the long term. And as you can tell, by shaving that, we've taken some of the dye off. Once I finish these sides, I'm not going to care too much if there's a slight coloration issue. It'll actually look a little bit better. But you can also hit it with some dye. So I'm using gum tragacanth. By all means, you can use water. You want to be stingy with what you're doing, though, what you're applying here. So I'm going to apply a little bit. I have what's called a bone folder. This has a few different edges on it. I'm just going to be using this so I can get in there. And really, you're not trying to do anything other than apply friction. And what this will do is smooth it out and make it shine a little bit. So if we see, the gum tragacanth can darken it a little bit, but I'm probably going to hit that with some dye. I'll just do that off camera, though, type of thing. I'm not going to worry about it. So we have one edge done. I'm going to finish the other edges, and then we'll jump back to the video. All right, so I finished the interior edges. I did end up dyeing it, and you can see now it blends in better. Quick little note as well, I did these edges. So this edge right here, just from there to there, and then the same thing here. I beveled, and then I also dyed them, but I beveled, used the bone folder. I actually used one of the smaller edges here because I was able to get to it. So basically doing this, setting it in the groove, and then again, you're not looking to push really hard because that'll actually kind of fold over your edges, and you don't want to do that. The name of the game is just friction, and what that friction will do is seal in the fibers and give it a smooth, not only a smooth look, but a smooth feel. All right, so I just did that off camera and wanted to point that out. The reason I didn't do these sides yet is because they're going to be exterior sides, and that'll be important, but we'll cover that later. So now I am just kind of lining this up just a little bit. I overcut this on purpose so that we would have some areas around here to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw on this around here, and we'll never see it because this stuff's going to get cut off anyways. But the reason I need this is as a guide for my dye. Not my dye, my glue. So I'm gonna set this here. So what we're gonna do, I didn't pull the glue out. What we're gonna do is glue this lining on. Now, I use contact cement. Rubber cement works just as well. But we are just going to coat this. And I'm gonna go over the line because it doesn't really matter with this. Normally, I use contact cement if I'm putting two pieces of leather together. I'm only doing about 1/4 inch in from the side. And what this stuff does is it really just holds your two pieces of leather in place while you do a stitch, which will hold it in place. That's more of a permanent bond. This really isn't going to be a permanent bond. But it'll help hold this in place. It should be a pretty good bond for the interior pieces. And then what I stitch around the sides, that'll hold pretty much indefinitely. So I'm not going to bore you with this. I will cut the video, but I'm also going to do this here and with glue. And then you got to wait 15 minutes to an hour or whatever it is, and then come back, and then I will place it on there. To note, I am going to be going outside this line a little bit because I want to make sure that my glue covers the whole area. All right, so I've let this sit for about 20 minutes. Whatever it is you're using, just follow the directions for cure time or whatever. As you can see, well, I didn't really explain it in the video. I threw this in here and put that stone on there just to keep it in place. I stayed well away from the diamond because I don't want that glue to come through, to show through, obviously, because that's going to be a finished portion of this. So now what we're going to do is just line this back up with our guideline. Slowly, and then press down on it once it's all lined up. All right. Some people I've seen have it's almost like a rolling pin, but it's just got a handle and it's a small little rolling pin type of thing. And they'll use it during this type of a step. I don't have one. I'm not really sure where to get one, honestly. And this works well enough. But now, cure time, I want to say, is at least an hour with this. And we definitely want to wait until this is 100% cured. Again, I'm a late night leather worker, so I'm just going to let it go overnight. It's not going to affect it any other way. So again, it'll probably just be a few seconds to you. It'll be overnight to me. Let's see. All right, we are back. And this is dried overnight. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and we are now going to trim away the excess of the lining. Now when I do this, I'm not going at a 90 degree. I'm going to actually tilt my blade in a little bit so that I don't want this cut completely flush. I want to try and get it cut sort of at an angle, and that'll just make it easier when we are finishing the edges, because we're not going to be like sanding down this at all. And you'll see when we get there, but we want to pretty much not get it wet if possible with the gum tragacanth and everything, because then it'll discolor. So let's see here. We're going to go slow and steady, because I don't want to slip, don't want to cut myself, don't want to screw up the project near the end. Alright, so there we go. Not too bad. As you can probably see, I cut into my leather a little bit. Not going slow like I said we should. Mistakes happen. I actually have an idea for a better design in the future. I mean, like I said, this one's for me, but instead of having everything going in two directions like that, I'm thinking about having 4 quadrants. And you'll have the basket weave going up like this, and then a lower basket weave going down, and there will be a line or 2 bordering, and then we can do the shading all the way around. So I'm going to draw it out first and see how it looks, but that's what I'm thinking. I think if I go lower here on this blade, yeah. So get low with your blade, don't be too high, and you'll be able to ride the leather a little bit better. Low is in like a low angle instead of being like this, like that. It's kind of why I labeled this whole video series a journey in leathercraft, because it's a journey for me as well. And, you know, you're constantly learning as you go. So, all right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is decide which one is going to be the top, or which of these two. I kind of like this as being the top, and the reason I'm doing this is because one of our next step is going to be gluing these on. But I want to bevel my top edge on the outside. We're not going to bevel the inside at all, because we're not going to be cutting any of the red border. red lining. So, but I'm going to bevel the top edge because just for me, I don't want to have these attached and then I have it sitting on here, and then as I'm beveling, this is flexing a little bit. I don't want that. So again, let's have that be the top. And then honestly, what I'm going to do is just finish. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm going to finish the edge first before we move further. Because I'm not going to have to finish it up here because that's already done as well. So we've already gone through that. I'm not going to bore you with finishing it. My daughter is yelling, so I got to go attend to her too. So I'm going to pause the video and then come right back. All right, so our top edge is done. Looks good. Feels good. Nice and smooth. So we are moving on to attaching the back panels with our glue. Just hold them in place for the final part where we're going to punch our holes and then do our stitching. That's not the final part. We then finish the edges. So one thing I can see right here, and I don't know if it's going to show up really well on the camera, is lining this up. There's a bit of the edge that doesn't quite line up. So you can maybe see it bubbling out a little bit there. You can see the red, like right down there at the bottom, right here. So that's why you don't completely finish your edges until the very end, because what we can do is once this is all sewn and in place and it's not going anywhere, we can sand it down, trim it with a knife if we need to or whatnot, and even it completely up. And then what that does is it just gives it this, like, looks like it was die cut type of finish. And then we'll finish our edges and everything's gonna be great. So what I'm gonna do here is see, I have a pen. I'm going to set these on here and get them to where I'm happy with how they look. I'm gonna go off of the top edge because that's the one that I did finish. All right. And now what I want to do is peel this back a little bit, and I'm not going to mark next to it. I'm going to mark underneath here. And all I'm doing is letting myself know how far to go over. Now, if you look, it's actually maybe close to 1/8 of an inch in from the actual edge. But I want that because I don't want that mark showing up, obviously, in the final product. So I'm going to do that on this side here as well. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the glue, and I'm only going to go in about 1/4 of an inch from here to here, from here to here. And then the same thing on these. I'm just going to do the L shape because these are pockets. I don't want them glued all the way down. You know, I want to be able to slip cards and money or whatever in there. So I've already shown you that. I'm not going to waste your time other than, well, let me show you this real quick. So there's a trick when you're just trying to do a small amount, like on an edge. And the trick is use an edge. Now we're not going to use as much as I did before on here, you know, and try and get most of it off. But I'm going to use the edge of my bench here. Can you see? All right. Yeah, I'm just going to brush it off. Now I'm going to brush up a little bit too, and I'm going to credit Chuck Dorset from Weaver Leather on this, because you don't really want the glue on the side. You're going to see that when you go to finish your side. So you want to make sure that you're not brushing, especially in a downward motion to where you're getting that glue on there. But I'm going to finish this up, give it time to cure, put it on the, you know, put the pieces on here. and then I'll turn the video back on once we're getting ready to punch our holes. All right, now we're on to punching our stitching holes. And I showed you before the other mallet I have that's a poly mallet. This is rawhide. Rawhide's pretty great. When it gets beat up, you can sand it down if you need to. Lasts a long time. This one is, I don't think it lists how many ounces, but you can get different ounces. This one's got some heft to it. And you want some heft when you're doing things like punching holes through multiple layers of leather. So what I would do is I would find those lines that I have, line this up here, and then hit the these prongs here with the mallet. Now this is a Craft Tool 88045-04. It's 3mm. You can see it right there. And what it is it's a set of 4 prongs. They sit, I don't know if we can, they sit at an angle though. Actually, I'll show you when we punch a hole. So I got a 4, a 2, and a single. I'm not going to use this. I was just showing you because that's really what it's going to be one of your cheaper alternatives. But I have this 1-ton arbor press that I got from Harbor Freight. So you want something that's just kind of like a cutting board, like a plasticky cutting board. You want something like that for your tines to sink into where you're not going to screw them up. So I use the arbor press, and I'll show you how I use that. Now, one thing to note, I'm going to have to do a little bit of, I'm going to have to actually take this and slide it in here to get this inner piece. I don't normally have to stitch inside pieces, so I really didn't think of it, but we should have punched those holes before actually putting these pockets on here. So if you didn't do that yet, if you're following along, then great. Go ahead and punch your holes first, but I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to start at the top. Alright, so I'm going to line it up with my arbor press, keep it up and down, complete vertical, and push it in. Now, what you need to do is, I don't want to go and rock it this way. I want to go this way. If I go the other way, I'm going to be opening up the holes even more. So I don't know how well you can tell, if you can see in here, but they are diamond shaped holes. Yeah, it's going to be hard to tell, but diamond shaped holes. So now that we've got our first hole, little trick is you put your last tine in your last hole, if you've got the room. And I'll show you what I mean in a second here. Make sure they're still lined up straight with your guideline. And this is how you get a straight stitch line, by hand. Be careful when pulling these tines out. They can bounce back up on you, and I've poked myself quite a few times. Now I'm going to go down to the 2 tine. Maybe not. Let's see. Yeah. Nope, I'm just going to use this one. So I'm going to back up and go the last 2 holes. So if you see I've got those 2 holes, I'm going to line up the 2 tines there, and it's going to get me right into my corner. I'm going to come out a little bit farther than I kind of want, but it'll be fine. Okay, now, good. Make sure and it's going through like I want it to. Continue with this along here. So now what I'm going to do is, I don't want to stick my tine in here because I've got the hole diamond shaped going this way. I don't want to ream it out more. So a little bit of a trick is just line it up here, find my line, my stitch line, and then I'm going to rock back and mark my next hole. So then I'll put this tine here, put that right there, lining it up with the hole. And there we go. So I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to also actually just go all the way around here. You don't need to see me doing all of that. And then once I get to the point of stitching, we'll turn the video back on. All right, we're back. I've got the holes punched, as you can see, just in the L shapes. All right. So now what we're going to do is take our thread, and what you need with the stitch we're doing, it's a saddle stitch. You need, I think it's 6 to 7 times your length. I usually go about 8. So what I'm going to do is just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then just a little bit more. Now this is, you can get, this is unwaxed thread. You can get a waxed thread if you want. I'm not even sure how much the price difference is. Tandy has one. I don't really like it. So see here, now I'm not promoting something. None of this is paid sponsorships, by the way. This is just my, you know, how I feel about certain things. I don't have one specific vendor I use. At any rate, I've got this block of beeswax. So what I'll do is pinch my finger down and pull through. And what that does is get some wax on here. To me, the waxed thread that I've bought before, it's just, there's way too much waxy buildup on it. I mean, you can see a little bit of a wax buildup here on this stuff, maybe, but that'll go away. So I'm going to run this through, going one way and going the other, and I do it twice to each side. And what the wax does is it just gives it a little more like tensile strength. When it comes to veg tanned leather and, you know, these types of products, that, I mean, these will last, these can last a lifetime if you take care of them or more. The thread is the one thing that could possibly break down, really. So, I mean, the easiest thing to break down, I guess. But what we're going to do is we wax the thread, and we're also going to do a saddle stitch, which means if one of the stitches pops, gets cut, it's not going to unravel either. It's a very strong stitch, and as you see it weaves. You're going to have 2 needles weaving in and out of the same hole. So here's the needle I have, and I don't know what size it is, but as you can see, it's kind of got this long head on it here. They don't need to be sharp because we've punched our holes. So you're going to thread through the needle, and I'm going to pull it down, and here's the fun, tricky part. So I'm going to hold the thread here while holding the needle, because I want to create some tension, because I'm going to take the needle and pierce it through the thread like that. Okay, so that's how it looks, and then we're going to bring it down through and then just choke up on our thread a little bit. We're going to do that to the other side. And everything I do, at least up to this point, January 2019, is all hand stitched. I don't do any machine stitching. eventually, if I may start getting into that. For something like larger projects and trying to maybe mass produce larger things, but for now, I know hand stitching to me is just the way to go. So I now have what's called the stitching pony out. I'm gonna make a few adjustments. Bear with me, just because I want you to be able to see this. All right. So what we're going to do is open this up. And put it in like this. Now, the top is facing me, the top of the wallet. And I'm doing it this way just to show you. You usually want to stitch towards you though, so I will end up moving this for a second. But we're going to stitch down here and end there. So, can you see that? Alright, so we're going to start stitching here and then end down here, because we're going to go through the leathers, and that way it just won't, you won't see it as much if it bulges a little bit down there. So what we do is we take our thread, go through our first hole, and then match it up. Basically take both your needles, hold them like this, and we're going to pull this so that it all matches up. The next thing we're going to do is one needle is going to go partially through this first hole. Then you're going to kind of bend it. And on the back side, on the back side here, I'm going in the back part of this hole and coming out this way. So you manipulate the needles however you need to. All right, so we've got them coming through. I'm going to flex them a little bit just so I can push them through. And then we're just going to pull the needles. If you need to, if your holes aren't big enough or whatever, then we give it a little bit of a snug pull. You can get like an awl like this and jam it through your holes as needed. Just to it opens them up a little bit. These holes are just fine for the needles I'm using and the thread I'm using. So that's all you do. You just keep going through here. So I'm going to stop the video now, well, in about a minute. And once we get here, I'll start back up again. All right, so I've gone all the way through to the last hole. Now, what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to try and find the best way to show it, probably like this, is I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to go back through the previous hole here. But I'm not going to go all the way through the hole on either side. I'm going to bring it out between the leathers and the lining. So I'm going to find that hole on the back here, go in and angle it. And this is always the fun part. Actually, I'm going to bring this up a little bit more so I can get a better angle at it. This is where I stab my finger often, honestly. So in. That went through the hole. There we go. Now, as you can see, it's coming out of the leather. And do the same thing on this one. I punched my hole a little close to the line there on that side. And again, this is just a prototype. I'm just going to take this completely out now, because the stitching pony is actually just getting in the way more than it's helping, especially trying to do it this way. So As you can see right there, I'm going to go through this hole. I'm going to go almost straight up. There we go. Pull that through. All right, now we're going to take our threads. We'll raise this up a little bit. And we're just going to go left over the right. Bring it through. Another knot. I'm going to try and get that knot tight down in that leather. So we're going to pull really tight. So we did left over right, then right over left. Right over left. Get this knot down. Same way. Alright. I'm going to snip it. Use that stitching awl a little bit to tuck it more. So it's not, now it's not going to be very visible because we still have our edges that we're going to do, including dyeing these edges, so we shouldn't see the red much at all. I just want to get this knot down in there because we are going to sand it a little bit, and I want to sand the knot off. So then what you can do is take your mallet, Alpine hammer maybe, and we're just going to lightly hit the stitches, and what that does is helps seat the stitching. Makes it look a little bit nicer. Alright, so I'm going to do the next side. You're not going to have to really watch and see all of that, and then we will be close to being finished. Once this is done, we'll jump back on the video showing you how to finish the sides, and then we are done. Alright, we're just about ready to start wrapping this project up. One thing to note, so I did the rest of the stitching, and I've put some bend into it, and was actually had it in my front pocket for a little while. We got a little bit of a crack look, and that looks like that actually cracked here a little bit. What we're going to do at the very end is apply what's called neat's foot oil. This project I was making with some older leather, like scrap leather I had, so that can kind of happen if you don't actually apply the neat's foot oil earlier on. It just helps soften up the leather. Also, one of the things you can do is just get like these areas wet when you're going to bend them, because it's like wet forming your leather, where you actually get the leather really wet and you can form it and mold it. And especially for like a gun in a holster, you jam your gun, you put the gun in like a plastic bag or something, jam it into the holster, and you can mold that leather right to it, and then you just let it dry before removing the holster. And then honestly, after that, even let it dry for like 24 hours and you're good. It stays in that position. So this is an early morning edition. Like I normally say, I'm a late night leather worker, but it's a Sunday morning, and I've got my Rogue One coffee mug here. Nice thing of coffee. Just got done doing the snow. It's a chilly January. So what I wanted to do, and what we could do early on, actually, as far as when you're actually making your pattern, and I think I mentioned this before, is fold it, and then we could just cut these edges in a round circle, and then all four of these would be rounded. I'm just going to do that now. You know, I mean, it's modification, really, to a certain degree, but I can't go too crazy with it. Now they sell punch tools that you set it down. It's a crescent half circle shape, and you just set it in there and boom, you hammer it down and it's going to go right through. Those punch tools are expensive. They're mostly for like belt ends anyways. They come in different sizes like that. An easy trick to get a rounded edge is this. What I'm going to do, let me see how well you can see. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut diagonally across here. So I'll do that first. All right. So that's what it looks like. All right. Now what I'm going to do is nip these other corners, these, yeah, like little corners coming off at an angle. All right, and well, I will clean it up a little bit, but there you have a rounded edge. And it'll look nicer in a second too when we do a little bit more. So I'm not going to pause the video for this because I can get this done relatively quickly. It's not going to be perfect this way, but like I said, it'll serve its purpose. Alright, I'll clean that up later. So now, we are going to get the beveling tool out again. And this one with the blade. So we've done the top already, finished our top. So what we're going to do is now bevel. What, baby? Yeah? And you got to go around these corners a few times just to really round it. A little bit of trouble in there, so I'm going to take this just to even it out a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, and you can tell, or at least I can tell, this is some older leather because it's not reacting like it normally does to this either. It wants to bunch up on me a little bit. Alright. Overall though, I do really love this design. I can't wait to do it on some a little bit better leather. And I think I might actually lower the size of this, like have this come up to here. But we'll see. Alright, so next, we are going to use gum tragacanth and slick our sides. Oh, well, no, sorry. We have to do this side. We didn't do both sides of the top because we have lining on there. So, all right. Now we're ready for a gum trag. Okay. So this doesn't really have a spot. I mean, this will kind of fit, but not really. So what we're going to do is just use this outer edge. We're going to go at an angle like this way, and then go at an angle this way, and just sort of round it as we go. Again, you're not looking to apply a ton of pressure. You don't want to sort of mushroom your leather around here. You're just looking for friction. Friction will help seal in the fibers. And again, you don't need gum tragacanth. You can use water. I would just use it sparingly. You can always apply more. You don't want to apply too much and end up ruining your edges. Applying too much water can make it do things you don't want it to do. Alright, so I'm going to spare you watching me do all of this. It's just the same thing all the way around. And then when I come back, we'll get to dyeing the edge itself. And then that should hide the layers a little bit better. Definitely hide the red liner. So we got our edges nice and smooth. You're not going to feel that through the camera. And if you do, get in contact with me because I'd like to know how you did that. But they're nice and smooth. And now I'm going to cover them up. I'm going to use this is a Fiebing's leather dye, USMC black. I have a Pro Dye black as well that I bought after this, but I like to use this for the edges. So the black, it's going to provide a nice contrast to the brown and the red, and it's going to, black does the best job of hiding different layers as well. I don't always use black, but on this project I figured with having the red in there, it'd be better to really hide that. So you want to be careful because you obviously don't want to get black all over your insides or outside of your project. There is also something called Edge Coat, K-O-T-E, and it's more of I've used it from time to time. It's more of how do I explain it? It's like a thicker type of item, and you apply it with sort of like a flat type of item. I mean, if you're going to buy it wherever you're buying it from, like Tandy or wherever, talk to them or watch a video on it and you'll see what to use and how to do it. It ends up being very shiny, which is great. I like that. But it's tricky to work with, and I find that just the black dye itself can work really well. It does a great job, though, of sealing in your edge. Whereas I'm going to do something just a little bit different to seal in the edges here. Like I said, these edges are nice and slick and smooth. One thing that I like to do to, especially projects like holsters and knife sheaths, is I'm going to get out that beeswax block and I'm going to run the edge over it a few times to get some beeswax on it. And then I'm going to take the bone folder again and we will pretty much rub that beeswax in, and then it gives the edge a tackiness to it. So again, I like doing that with holsters and knife sheaths. gives you a sort of a better grip on it when you're using it, especially a knife sheath. For a buddy of mine who's a chef. But it also, I don't know, to me it just gives it a more rugged, long-term feel. You know, there's nothing wrong with a nice smooth edge. That's a very professional look too. But it's just preference. So if you're following along with your own project, by all means, that's definitely optional. You don't have to do that yourself. But at the very end, we are going to do that. All right. So we got a nice black on there. And again, like I said, you got to be careful. And I always find spots that I missed or that are a little bit light. And we could have definitely dyed this first and then did our finishing edge work on it afterwards. I've just found that if I'm trying to dye an edge that's not smooth, it's a lot harder to do. Well, not so much harder to do, but it's just much easier to get your dye in areas you don't want it to be. So I'm finding here that I didn't get the whole front. Remember, this is a rounded edge. Just make sure that you're getting everything you want. And you can wipe mistakes if you do it rather quickly. It's not perfectly gone, but there's not a stark contrast between the black and this darker brown, so it's not a huge deal. All right, I'm going to stop the video. We're going to let this dry for not as long as, not a couple hours by any means. Maybe an hour, maybe 45 minutes. It's just on the edge, so it's not like it's a whole huge project. I may apply a second coat. It depends on how it looks. But other than that, I'm not going to bring the video back to basically show you me applying a second coat. We'll come back when we're getting ready to do the rest of the edge work. All right, so technically we are finished. I don't know how well you can see the edge, but the edge is looking pretty good. I did do a second coat of black, and then I used the leather balm top coat like we did on the rest of the leather after it dried. So again, like I said, we are technically finished, but I'm going to use some beeswax on here to give this a tackiness. Partly because it's just, this is a little bit of a rough cut, if you will, piece. Not as clean cut as the actual products will be, but it was a prototype. So what I'm going to do is rub this on here. And I'm going to take this and just rub it in. And that'll help seal all the edges here too. Again, you don't need to do this step, but I like it. It's also good to note that it can kind of dull the edges a little bit too. So if you prefer, like I said, if you prefer the shiny look, then you don't want to do this. I mean, it's a little bit shiny, but not as it was. So I'm going to continue doing this on the rest of it and then apply the Neat's Foot oil, and then I'm done. All right, so I now have a finished product. I don't know if you can tell, it's a little bit shiny because I do have the Neat's Foot oil on it right now. Again, you take like a rag, clean rag, and just rub it in. So now I just have to wait for it to dry completely. And what the Neat's Foot oil does is it adds oil to your leather. It's good to apply Neat's Foot oil to any of your leather products like this, like Veg Tan, just over time, because this stuff will dry out, and you add the oil back in, and it's, I mean, if you have something that's cracked and dry and you add some oil to it, whether it's Neat's Foot or, you know, any of the other products out there, a lot of times it makes it look like it's brand new again. So it's kind of like changing the oil in your car, or you know, doing routine maintenance on a car. If you take good care of your vehicle, it's going to last you a lot longer than never changing your oil, never doing any routine maintenance. This type of leather on its own can last you quite a long time, even without routine maintenance. But if you want it to last almost forever, you know, it's just very little maintenance, but that's all you really need to do. So final thoughts on this, things that I might do differently. Again, I'm going to change my pattern to where the edges are rounded right away. I may end up having these pockets just a little bit smaller. I did, and I don't have my wallet on me, but I did put a credit card in here, and it covers it quite well, to be honest with you. But I might, you know, have this only come up to about here. So I'd say, you know, 3/4 of an inch maybe, or close to an inch less from the top, which we would just cut from here and lower on our pattern. Other than that, if there's different options of pigskin suede, as far as color wise, so, you know, we can do a lot with just this pattern. And then again, I think I've mentioned I may even have 4 quadrants instead of 2 with the basket weave, and have the, you know, this going up here, this going here, and then these, well, I don't know if you can see that. It's hard to tell when I'm looking at this, but, you know, 4 quadrants, basket weave going in this direction, and then this one like it is, and that one like it is. So, yeah, that's it. I'm going to start making these. I don't know what the price point would be yet, because I haven't even sat down to figure out how much leather I've used and what my material cost is, but I really like it, and I think other people will too. So leave a comment, let me know what you thought. If you followed along and made your own, by all means, please, you know, show a picture or something. Don't be shy if it doesn't look all that great. I mean, everybody starts somewhere, or maybe it looks better than what I did, you know, show it off. That's awesome. So again, thank you everybody for watching, and have a great day.